ready to unlock some serious wisdom about wealth and happiness. We're about to take a deep dive into the Almanack of Naval Ravikant, and trust me, this is one book you'll want to have on hand.
It's not your typical self-help stuff. Naval Ravikant's a Silicon Valley legend. We're talking founded companies, early investor in Uber, Twitter, and the list goes on.
Exactly. And when he talks about building wealth and finding happiness, he's speaking from a place of, well, actually doing it.
And what's really cool, he's not afraid to question everything. Thinks from first principles.
Oh, yeah. And that's a big part of what makes his insights so valuable. He's not just repeating the same old tired advice. Plus, he doesn't take himself too seriously, which I appreciate.
Yeah, you'll see what we mean as we go through this. One thing's for sure, Naval's advice, it's often counterintuitive. He challenges those hustle 24/7 narratives we hear so much these days.
Right. It's like there's got to be a better way. And that's what this deep dive is all about. Giving you those actionable takeaways, things you can actually use to make a difference in your life. So let's jump in. One of the first things that really struck me was Naval's statement, seek wealth, not money or status. I mean, those things seem kind of intertwined, don't they?
Yeah, and that's where Naval makes this really important distinction. He sees wealth as assets that work for you. They generate income even when you're not actively working.
Okay, so like what? Give me an example.
Think rental properties, owning a business, code you've written that's generating royalties, or even online content that keeps earning.
Okay. Stuff that earns while you sleep, basically.
Exactly. It's about having those assets, those things that work for you. Money, that's just a tool to acquire them.
Yeah.
Way to transfer wealth, really. And then there's status.
Which, let's be honest, can be pretty fleeting, right?
Totally. It's often tied to your position in a social hierarchy, which, let's face it, can change like the wind.
So it's less about chasing paychecks and climbing ladders and more about building something that generates value over time, even when you're not directly involved.
You got it. Shifting your mindset from trading time for money, which, let's be real, is what a lot of traditional jobs are, and moving towards owning equity. Having a piece of something that has the potential to, really grow.
Okay, starting to see the bigger picture here. Now, speaking of growth, Naval also talks about this idea of specific knowledge, finding your unique edge. What's that all about?
This is where things get really interesting. Specific knowledge is like your superpower. It's what you're uniquely good at, even if it seems effortless to you.
So what kind of things are we talking about here?
Honestly, it could be anything. Maybe you have a natural talent for sales or music. Some people have this obsessive personality. They can dive deep into things that would bore most people to tears. Naval even says being a really good gossip can be valuable.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me my love for knowing everyone's business could actually be an asset?
Think about it. If society can easily train someone else to do what you do, you become, well, replaceable. Specific knowledge is leverage. It's how you stand out from the crowd, escape that race to the bottom.
So it's about identifying your strengths, the things that make you different, and honing those into valuable skills.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, it's not like you're born with this specific knowledge. It's developed over time, through experiences, through focused effort.
So like what were you naturally drawn to as a kid? What do people consistently compliment you on? Those are clues.
Yeah. It's about tapping into those natural talents, those things you gravitate towards, and then putting in the work to turn them into something truly unique.
Finding that sweet spot between what you're good at, what you enjoy, and what the world actually values.
You got it.
I love that. It's like finding your niche, your unique space where you can really thrive. And it makes me think about something else Naval talks about, playing the long game.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. And it actually ties in perfectly with what we were just talking about, this whole idea of specific knowledge.
So how does that work? How does playing the long game apply to, like, finding your niche?
Well, it's not just about your skills. It's about the people you surround yourself with. Naval emphasizes playing long-term games with long-term people. It's like compound interest, but for your network.
Compound interest for your network. I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
Think about it this way. When you invest time and energy in building real, genuine relationships with people who share your values, people you admire.
People you actually want to hang out with, not just network with.
Right. And you consistently show up with integrity, with generosity, you're building trust. And that trust, it becomes incredibly valuable over time.
It's like that story Naval tells about Elad Gil, the angel investor.
Oh yeah, Elad Gil. Known for being incredibly generous, especially in business dealings.
Like, Naval talks about how Elad would round things up in his favor during negotiations, just to be fair.
Exactly. And that generosity, it wasn't just some random act. It was a reflection of his values, his commitment to mutual benefit.
And guess what? That generosity ended up coming back to him tenfold because Naval made it a point to send Elad every potential investment opportunity he came across.
See, that's the long game in action. It wasn't about short-term wins or trying to get ahead at someone else's expense.
It was about building that relationship, that trust, and creating something mutually beneficial.
Exactly. Recognizing that in the grand scheme of things, we're all in this together.
So how do we find those long-term players in our own lives?
It starts with being honest with yourself about your values. Who do you genuinely admire? Who consistently shows up with integrity, with generosity, with a commitment to excellence?
The kind of people you want to be more like?
Exactly. Those are the people you want to be building relationships with. They'll challenge you to grow, for sure, but they'll also support you along the way.
It's about surrounding yourself with people who bring out the best in you, both personally and professionally.
100%. And it's not just about what you can get from those relationships. It's about what you can contribute, how you can add value to their lives as well.
Okay, so we've talked about wealth, about building those strong relationships, but what about happiness? Because Naval himself has admitted he wasn't always a happy guy. He even rated his own happiness as a 2 out of 10 at one point.
That's right. And what's so interesting is he didn't shy away from that. He actually leaned into it and ended up discovering some really powerful insights along the way.
So what was the key takeaway? How do you go from a 2 to hopefully a much higher number?
Well, Naval realized that happiness isn't something you just find. Like it's out there waiting for you.
It's not some magical destination you arrive at one day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He came to believe that happiness is a skill, something you actively cultivate and develop, much like you would physical fitness.
Okay, that's a pretty radical shift in perspective. So how do we actually create happiness? What are the steps?
Well, it starts with understanding that happiness is an inside job. It's about cultivating a sense of inner peace, a sense of contentment that's not dependent on your circumstances.
Which, let's be real, is easier said than done, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like any skill, it takes practice. Naval talks about the importance of things like mindfulness, meditation.
Just taking some time to quiet the mind.
Yes, finding ways to observe your thoughts, your emotions, without judgment. It's incredibly powerful.
I've dabbled in meditation, and even just a few minutes a day can make a difference.
It's about training your mind to be present, to focus on the good, and to let go of the things you can't control. And of course, a big part of it is nurturing those positive relationships we were talking about earlier.
Surrounding yourself with people who lift you up.
Yes. And it's important to be mindful of what you're consuming, what you're allowing into your mind. Naval's a big advocate for being intentional about your media diet, cutting out the noise, especially from things like social media, which can be such a breeding ground for negativity.
It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison trap, the negativity bias.
It's about setting healthy boundaries, creating space for the things that truly bring you joy. And don't underestimate the power of gratitude.
Focusing on what you have, not what you lack.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, but the key is to keep practicing, keep experimenting, and figure out what works best for you.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in all the noise and forget to, actually work on being happier. It's a practice, for sure.
It really is. And, Naval makes this point about acceptance being a huge part of happiness, like accepting the things you can control, focusing on what you can. That's a big step towards finding some inner peace.
Makes sense. Less stress when you're not constantly trying to change things that are totally out of your hands.
Exactly. And it reminds me of something else he talks about, judging others. He actually believes we should judge others favorably.
Really? Why is that?
He says it ultimately benefits us. Like choosing to see the good in others, it actually creates a more positive and fulfilling life for ourselves.
Interesting. So it's like by choosing to see the best in others, we're kind of giving ourselves a gift in a way.
Exactly. Shifting your focus from judgment to understanding, from negativity to possibility. And that actually leads to another really thought-provoking idea that Naval brings up. He asks, imagine your life playing out 1,000 times. How can you ensure you find success and happiness in most of those versions?
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. It's like taking the long view, not just of your career or relationships, but of your entire life.
Right. And he's not talking about some kind of, predetermined destiny. It's about designing your life, making choices that maximize your chances of experiencing the things that truly matter. Fulfillment, joy, sense of purpose.
So it's about putting systems in place, making choices today that set us up for success and happiness down the road.
Exactly. It's about playing that long game, but with our entire lives. So, as you dive deeper into Naval's work, think about that 1,000 lives framework. What can you do today to increase your odds of living a life you'd be happy to live again and again?
This deep dive into the Almanack of Naval Ravikant has been amazing. And honestly, I feel like we just scratched the surface.
We did, but those core principles we talked about, seeking wealth over money or status, figuring out your specific knowledge, playing those long-term games with long-term people, and of course, treating happiness like a skill you can develop, those are huge.
They really are. For anyone listening who wants to dive deeper, and I have a feeling there are a lot of you out there.
Definitely check out the Almanack of Naval Ravikant. It's
Okay.
full of wisdom.
Read it, explore it, see how it resonates with you. Figure out how you can apply these ideas to your own life, your own unique circumstances.
Because remember, this is your journey. Naval's insights are a guide, but you're the author of your own story.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep seeking out those insights that will help you unlock your full potential. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time.